All right, everyone. It's very funny because the pro-authoritarian sort of establishment within politics and stuff, they've got to stick up their ass about alt tech. Like, by the way, link in the description. I am on BitChute, I'm on Steemit, Minds, and Gab. I also use other sites. I have a WordPress, Blogger, Patreon page, everything. Links are in the description in every video, but those alt tech sites are definitely strong alternative places in which I put my material. There will, in time, be BitChute and Steemit exclusives, by the way. It's just the entheogen videos, like, because of the globalized nature of the web, where sites have begun kicking people off for stuff that's not even on that site itself, I can't ever make my entheogen series because I'm never sure it's going to be safe to do so. I would have to, like, literally go anonymous mode and be like, oh, this person has an intriguing series on entheogens, so totally not me. I may end up having to do that sort of stuff. I can see a future online where people go incognito, at least for some of their content on secondary accounts. I can absolutely see that happening. But here's the thing. With regards to alt tech, it was funny because I shared out on Twitter, the backstory here, the link to my BitChute account. I'm like, hey, I'm on BitChute, I'm the largest creator, like I've got the most subscribers of anyone, although I believe Sargon of Akkad is quickly marching towards 10K, and he hasn't been on there for very long. So it may end up being, much like mine, Sargon may end up eventually taking the lead. But I'm trying to get to 20K first, so you should definitely join me there. I'm above 16 right now. I think Paul Joseph Watson and Molyneux are the others with above 10,000 at this time. Sargon will be, I believe, the fourth. Bering will probably be fifth. So it's a pretty good lineup of people with large audiences. Here's the thing. I post the link on there, and then several individuals who, they know who they are. They're infamous as far as on Twitter. Like, one of them is a main Twitter, I don't know what you'd call him of mine, fan/not fan of all of my beliefs, named Estevel. And he was like, well, BitChute's propaganda, it's a far-right echo chamber. I'm like, you'd have to proclaim me far-right for that to be true, number one, because I'm their top uploader. I've got the most views and the most subscribers of anyone on the platform. So if I'm not far-right in your estimation, it can't really be a far-right platform. I'm like, not tooting my horn when I say this because it is a smaller site, but I'm basically the PewDiePie of BitChute at this point. And it's funny. I think that's a good thing, but yeah, just in my own judgment, I think it's good that I'm the number one person there. Yeah, just a little bit of an out there statement. Oh, I could have sworn I would hope that it was destiny or something. No, so that's number one. Number two, you're actually totally wrong. There are people on the left on BitChute. They're not being abused, making their content, doing what they want to do. And you've got to understand some of the bigger names like Sargon, he is not far right. Can we get over this fucking mythology that because someone stands against censorship and they stand against like maybe radical fourth wave feminism or they stand against the PC culture, that somehow this makes them a rabid right-winger? This is only considered true by people who themselves are very far out there on the, again, so-called left authoritarian spectrum. Only they think that somebody like Sargon is on the right. Look, if you talk to actual far right-wingers, they think Sargon is center-left, which is a little bit closer to the truth. I consider him basically just to be a centrist on many things. He happens to lean towards libertarianism, a classical liberal. That's not really even on the left-right scale. He's somewhere in the center. He believes in, like, I think he believes more in gun control than I do. More in some tempering of what I would consider libertarian rhetoric, I believe, as well. Looking at the situation fairly, though, BitChute itself does not make content. And he was talking about, well, yeah, but they promote content, it tends to be, like, really far-right. And I'm like, again, how do you judge far-right? So if they share one of my videos where I'm like, hey, the alt media is rising, legacy media is dumb, is that a far-right piece of content because I'm reaming CNN? And in the same breath, if I ream Fox, does that make me like far left or something? That's not the way that it works. Now, I've already pointed out, and I pointed this out on the message, on the comment thread there as well. I've already told BitChute that in my personal opinion, I do not believe that material should be promoted in that way. But it's not my site. And this is their Twitter handle. It's not like, oh, well, they're fiddling around with who gets promoted on BitChute itself. That's something that YouTube would do. You know, no offense, but YouTube's been doing that for years. It's become a little bit of a problem for some creators who have massive audiences and they can't be on trending or up next or related or anything like that because they've been basically shadow banned. It's a big problem. BitChute, as far as I know, is only doing it based on audience participation. So this person's getting a lot of comments, getting a lot of views, they're going to tend to be promoted. Now, this can cause a caste system to emerge where only larger creators can crack through and get into that because they're being dwarfed by people with established presences. Might be something to look at. But this is their Twitter handle. Like, I don't run their fucking Twitter handle. And by the way, if all tech sites, like Gab would be a more appropriate thing to look at. Gab does lean further to the right, I would say, certainly than BitChute and certainly than Minds. Gab does have more of an ideological leaning, like Gab's official handle engages in literal, explicit political discourse. And it comes from a right libertarian, I would say, perspective. So yeah, it tilts to the right. If Gab or a similar site, an alt-tech site, an alternative to one of the big tech firms, in Gab's case it's Twitter, although BuzzFeed swore up and down it was like Facebook, which is laughable. Where are the profiles? Now, where's Huffington Post does write-up? Where are the profiles? I thought it was like Facebook and shit. No, it's like having a Twitter handle. Except better than Twitter, arguably, at this point. Despite the fact that the site's like 1% the size of Twitter, I've got over 10,000 people following me there, too. As opposed to Twitter, where I'm slowly crawling up towards 45K after a year, and it's very funny, it's very amusing, and it's like, no, it's totally not algorithmically manipulated, despite the fact that you can check whether you've been shadow banned on the site. If an alt-tech site leans politically, like its user base tends to skew, in Gab's case I would say more towards the evangelical side than anything else. You know, admittedly, in all honesty, I noticed that even when I arrived there, because I'm irreligious. If that's the case, it's because that group of people has been or perceives itself as having been abused by big tech firms. And they're not wrong now, are they? Libertarians get abused by big tech sites all the time. Conservatives, even mainline conservatives on Facebook, Twitter and YouTube show a little bit more restraint, but if you've got anything beyond a very mild monarchist view, or if you're nationalistic, whether civic or ethno-nationalist, and not even just white nationalist, by the way, at this point, you've been abused. If you have highly religious, moralistic beliefs, you've been abused. You've probably been deplatformed on some of these sites. And for someone like me, I'll use myself as an example. I've never been deplatformed by a big tech firm. The reason why I use these sites is, what if it does happen? What if 2 years from now YouTube changes their rules on swearing, says you can't say fuck on videos anymore, we will ban you, and I get banned from YouTube? I want to make sure that those videos that I've worked hard to create are still there for my fans because you all matter to me. Why the fuck wouldn't I want to use a site like BitChute then? And it's automated. It makes it real easy for me as a content creator. I don't even have to manually upload anything. The most I'd have to do is manually put the hashtags in for search purposes. By the way, I think they've cut it down to 3. They should lift it back up to 4 like Steam it does. It makes it a little bit easier. Also, I like alt-tech because I can actually fucking communicate with these pages. I can talk to Bill Ottman if I want. I can talk to the BitChute staff anytime that I want. I can talk to the people at Gab. I can't talk to Susan, the CEO of YouTube. I can't talk to Zuckerberg, and probably wouldn't be able to have a coherent conversation with him if I could. Look, he short circuits sometimes, doesn't even appear to know where he is or who he is. Is he even human? I'm not sure. I don't like talking with AI systems. I think Twitter, yeah, I'm sure Jack is going to respond if I DM him. No, he's not. You'd have to have 1 million followers and a blue check mark to be able to communicate even sporadically with a lower level Twitter staff member. The closest I've ever come is that I know someone who used to work for Google as a mid-level employee, so I have that benefit, I suppose. That's about the closest I'm ever going to come to talking to Susan. Again, if I try to pronounce her last name, I won't be able to do it, so never mind. Alt-tech, I think, is great. Yeah, you should absolutely join me. There may come a day when I get kicked off of YouTube. I hope it never happens. I love being a YouTuber, but when you look at their new rules and how much it's changed drastically over 2 years, that they're throwing money at media firms that compete with me directly. It's obvious they are playing favorites with regards to the legacy media. They favor them over independent commentators on their own site that have spent years doing that kind of content. I don't know how wise a decision that is. They are going after a new wave of entertainment. Remember, this basically begins with their bullshit hit piece at the Wall Street Journal about PewDiePie supposedly dog whistling to a bunch of Nazis. That's when all of this began. And I saw it happening months before that, but that's sort of when it begins encroaching, and he gets kicked off. He swears a couple times, so he gets kicked off of his expanded AdSense, and they cancel his YouTube original, and they're like, you're in the not even. You're our largest creator by several tens of millions of subscribers. You gain 20 million fucking subscribers after this hit piece, to the point where it's an unfathomable audience that you have. You get millions of views within an hour on anything you create, but we're not giving you an exclusive because you're not G-rated enough. Can you imagine that? So because of that, because even someone with tens of millions of fans can be at a whim abused and removed, basically partially deplatformed off a site they are totally dominant on, what's to stop them from abusing me? So I'm not going to take any chances. I am a content creator. I create content for other people. It's like with my books. Why do I keep backups of them? It's not because I expect to be fucked by Amazon. It's not because I expect Amazon to randomly say, you know, we don't like your views, we're kicking you off the site despite all the money you've made for us. I don't expect that. But if something goes wrong, I want a backup. It just makes sense. I'm not going to rely upon big tech firms. Look, for a very long time I was only on YouTube. I had a Facebook page, it was personal, had nothing to do with my YouTubing. I created a Facebook fan page, at just the wrong time, because a few months later they started having scandals and declining as a site. Made a Twitter handle. I figured, well, that's not enough either, because now there's a lot of censorship here. I'm moving to alt tech. The second I started moving there, hit pieces begin mounting about, well, these new tech firms are just for the alt-right and they're filled with Nazis and stuff. It's like, you're deplatforming people off big tech, and you don't expect them to form their own fucking sites? And they're tolerating people like me. Look, I'm not on the alt-right, I'm a libertarian, but they don't seem to have a problem with me spreading my content on their sites. Well, that's wonderful. They're more tolerant than the establishment. Who would have thought? I'm telling you, the real hate, intolerance, and political intimidation is coming just from the establishmentarians. Routine neolibs and neocons. Because they're useful idiots. They're the soccer moms, the pearl clutchers. They're the flannel-wearing dad bod dudes who are upset. They're like, oh, my 16-year-old kid might see some Nazi on YouTube. They're the ones that are clamoring for censorship, not people on the so-called far-right. Most of these people, at least in the creators block, that are called far-right, they're not even far-right. Some of these people are center-left. They're leftists. They just don't approve of authoritarianism. That apparently makes them a Nazi. If you don't want to abuse people, you are now a Nazi. No wonder we're beginning to build up a presence on other sites. It just makes sense. It makes money sense too. If someone's making a bunch of money making content, why do they want to be at the whim of Jack on Twitter to keep making that money? Oh, I'm just going to rely upon his benevolence because I'm not doing anything particularly wrong. Well, that's not the way it unfortunately works. It's the way it should work, but it's not. That's about all. Peace out.